Welcome to Internet Changemakers, the podcast that takes you behind the scenes of the Internet's past, present, and future. Join us as we dive into the biggest challenges and opportunities in online trust, privacy, accessibility, and the ever-evolving digital landscape. Whether you're a tech expert or just curious about the Internet's impact on your life, this podcast is your gateway to understanding and shaping a trustworthy, open, and accessible online world. Stay tuned, because the future of the Internet starts with you. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Internet Changemakers. Have you ever used Craigslist? You can get a variety of different products and services and everything in between.
In this episode of Internet Changemakers, we talk with Craig Newmark, the quietly influential founder of Craigslist, whose early internet vision was rooted in trust and community. From building one of the world's most enduring classifieds platform to becoming a major advocate for cybersecurity, journalism, and resilience, Craig shares with us what it means to protect trust in the age of misinformation. Craig, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, I'm really glad to be here.
Before we get into the intense topics that we have lined up for discussion today, I want to start with something lighthearted. So we know that you're a fan of science fiction. I wanted to know if there are any influential books or movies that have shaped how you think about the internet in today's day and age.
I realized yesterday that anything by Aidan Tchaikovsky is really good and does affect me, particularly his sense of, compassion and humanity. Then there's the almost predictable novels like Neuromancer and anything by William Gibson. Movies, for me, it's all Blade Runner.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing. And one other question before we get into the thick of it is, what is your first memory with the internet?
My first memory, the way I like to think of things, goes back to 1973 or 4 when it was just the ARPANET. At that point, the school I was attending, Case Tech of Case Western Reserve, was on the ARPANET, and I was thinking that this is going to really matter someday, and maybe I should do something with it, but I wasn't smart enough to do that.
Craig, let's talk about the website that really made you popular. Craigslist, how did the website come to be? What were the origins of Craigslist, and what kind of thinking went into developing a website like this?
Basically, I moved to San Francisco in 1993. I was using the internet then, and a lot of people helped me out. And by the time early 95 rolled around, I figured it was time for me to give back. I started a simple mailing list, a CC list, telling people about technology and arts events, and it just spread of word of mouth. It took a year, but I realized, I'm a programmer. I could write some code which turned the emails into web pages, and I had instant free web publishing, and it just kept growing that way for a few years. At some point, people helped me understand I needed to make it into a real company, and I did that in early 99. The only unusual thing is that I remembered something from Sunday school. You should know when enough is enough. So I figured I was making a good living programming. I would charge as little as possible for the site. That's the philosophy Craigslist has today. It's just worked out a lot better than I anticipated.
I love that you mentioned the Sunday school values. How did that play a role in the philosophy around Craigslist?
The overwhelming principle is that you want to treat people like you want to be treated. That meant listening to people and do what was useful for people. It meant providing the best customer service I could for a free site. And that's kind of tough at times when it's become big and free. And then something I'm still trying to figure out, what does it mean when you're trying to be your brother's keeper, your sister's keeper? I'm still working on that while thinking about what it means to sell what one has and give it to the poor. How literally do I take that? These are all things which I'm still working on, like, 60 or more years after I went to Sunday school.
Something important from what you're mentioning is the idea of community that is part of your philosophy, and that has also been the driving force behind Craigslist. Could you tell us a little bit about the community building aspect of Craigslist and how it helped Craigslist become what it became.
The community stuff is just an extension of those basic beliefs I mentioned. The deal is that I did something useful and good for people where people had a minimal intermediary, people could work with each other, and the tone we set with Craigslist from the beginning and from we made it into a company, the principle was that everyone got along. That's not perfect. That's tough to do, but we keep the faith.
Awesome. So Craigslist was designed to be very simple. So the barriers to access wouldn't be very high. And there could be a community of diverse individuals who would all be able to access that. Some websites will use dark patterns to show ads, hidden costs, and in the end, make it more difficult for customers. Can you talk about your design choice when it came to Craigslist?
Fortunately, in '96, when I made the thing into a website, I realized that I have no fancy web design skills. I do know how to keep things simple, and that's what I did. Simple, straightforward, which means that a person can see how useful Craigslist is and see that it's easy to use, and that's what worked. In the years since I stepped down as CEO and promoted Jim Buckmaster, he's maintained that philosophy. I do worry that Craigslist would fall prey to the same kind of, what Cory Doctorow calls enshittification that we see through the net. The deal with dark patterns or extreme monetization and the resulting decrease in quality and community, that's a big problem nearly everywhere. And I think Cory got it identified right. I do chat with people in a lot of other places, quietly, back channel, about what we can do with that. But I'm just not good at, convincing bankers and people like that we don't have to do everything for the most money we can.
That is a very unique take in today's day and age where people are really trying to monetize every little tool and technology that they can come up with. And I think a lot of people are really grateful to you that you have kept Craigslist free so that they can access the services, the products that they can only find on Craigslist. Do you have any examples or interesting situations that you came across while you were managing Craigslist? Any interesting situations that you found yourself in?
I don't have a good memory for a lot of great stories. What I remember most is, in a sense, an aggregate. I learned that pretty much everyone just wants to get along. Pretty much everyone has good intentions and are good people. However, there is always a very small number of people comparatively who don't want to get along, who might be looking for attention, or who might have really bad intentions regarding other people. You do need to be vigilant about that, and you got to work ceaselessly trying to figure out how to better deal with the really bad stuff.
I couldn't agree more that the world is full of good people. The bad people are just loud, usually louder than the rest of us, unfortunately. How do you take that philosophy into other parts of your life that aren't just your business?
Well, since I've been financially successful with Craigslist, far more than I need to, I'm in the process of giving it away. 3 years ago, I took all my Craigslist equity, my shares, put them into a nonprofit foundation, which I call the Septuagenarian Fund, because I had just turned 70, and I'm now in the process of figuring out where it goes. For example, one big project area I have is helping out military families and vets. Really appropriate because we're recording this on Veterans Day in the U.S. And that's working out pretty well. I've outsourced kind of all of that to the Bob Woodruff Foundation for vets and to the Blue Star families for military families. Also, the other really big area where I'm funding things is cybersecurity and fighting scams. The deal there is that, we're all getting attacked, either outright warfare or just people trying to run scams on us. and I'm trying to build a network of networks of people of goodwill to fight against cyber attacks, to defend ourselves, and to fight scams, mostly by prevention. I recently realized that we need national mobilization to fight off cyber attacks. We need the same thing to fight scams. I'm calling that Take 9 via the site pausetake9.org, which is about helping people get real about protecting themselves. It's an ongoing story. We've barely getting started.
I think it's quite interesting that, internet is a network of networks, but to make sure that internet remains secure, you need a network of a lot of people who will help secure the internet. How important do you think is that human dimension and human networks as opposed to technical solutions through cybersecurity?
Well, first you need people to genuinely commit to fighting for cybersecurity, for safety, and then you need people committed to really good customer service and to implement everything that makes sense to do the best job we can protecting each other. We often need human judgment to figure out when something really is a scam, but I do have hopes for people who are now training large language models to detect signs of scams in real time. That's actually a thing which is happening, but right now it's happening quietly, it's experimental. I have a lot to learn about it, and after I learn a lot about it, I have a feeling I won't talk much about it publicly because I don't want to spill the beans. I don't want to reveal anything that bad actors can use. But aside from that, I may get loud in terms of the whole network.
You mentioned your work with Pause Take 9, and it really seems to have a very similar no frills approach that Craigslist also had, that it's very practical, it gets down to business, and it really helps people develop the skills that they would need to fight scams. Can you draw the line for us between Craigslist and your work there to your interest and now incredible philanthropy in cybersecurity and scams?
Well, I've retired from the company, and I have a close to zero role there. Beyond that, I figure I've been personally and professionally committed to scam fighting for over 25 years, and I'm trying to do everything we can to fight against it. Because I was attacked, both the company and I was personally attacked for fighting crime online, in particular scams, I've been pretty gun-shy about speaking up in this regards. And within the last couple months, I've realized that was a big mistake. I should have been vocal for years about fighting scams. I'm preparing to make up for lost time. Everything I do, though, is separate from the company. But I'm hoping that if the effort, the network of networks fighting scams, gets some real solutions, I'm going to bring those solutions to the attention of everyone.
I think when we think of cybersecurity, there are two sort of levels. One is where cyber criminals are directly targeting the civilian population through scams, phishing, and so on. But there is this other dimension where cyber criminals are targeting critical infrastructure, such as electrical grids or water purification systems that affect everyone's lives, that people are really dependent on and simply cannot do without. So, what is your take on the cybercrime threat and the potential harms of people targeting this critical infrastructure that is important to everyday life, to national security? And how is it that people can combat this dimension of cybersecurity threats?
The problem is that our free countries, the U.S. in particular, is being targeted by our adversaries, military adversaries. They're preparing, if necessary, to be able to take down water supplies, to be able to take down power supplies, to interfere with transportation or food logistics. A lot of these things are in process right now. We don't know how bad it is. If you want to do some research, look up Volt Typhoon or Salt Typhoon. So a lot of it's happening, and I'm funding an effort called the Cyber Resilience Corps, A lot of it has to do with Undisruptable 27 and the Franklin Project, involved in helping protect the small water supply systems that run a great deal of the water infrastructure throughout the U.S. So I'm funding the people who are really good at leading big volunteer efforts. But part of this also is that if we help people do cybersecurity basics, well, a lot of compromises of systems have to do with people not doing the basics. So if we help educate the public in the hundreds of millions as to how to keep themselves safe, that'll ultimately help protect infrastructure, and it'll help protect a lot of people against scams. The idea is that the people who work in infrastructure on an individual basis or a company basis have the same problems that we all do when it comes to keeping safe. You have to keep your logins secure. You have to do what you can to avoid getting your systems compromised. You have to update your systems frequently, and you have to do what's right to keep yourself protected, and you have to learn how to extend that to help protect your company, because you're protecting your job that way. The hard part for me personally may be that in talking about this frequently and loudly, I may wind up putting a lot of pressure on IT staffs at small infrastructure firms, and that's going to really annoy a lot of IT people who are under-resourced, and I just hope I don't piss them off too much.
I love that you mentioned that this is something that we need to be able to train people at on a large scale. It's a big problem, and big problems usually need big, smart teams to be able to make some headway. You have supported cybersecurity clinics at universities to train future cybersecurity defenders. And that is one way that you have tried to scale cybersecurity knowledge around a population. What qualities do you believe the internet leaders in cybersecurity of tomorrow, what skills do they need beyond the technical? So you say that we don't want to piss off the IT folks too much. How do we make sure that cybersecurity leaders have skills beyond technical, and what should those be?
Two big skill areas. Well, one, people have to know how to work with other people. You have to be able to collaborate with other people of goodwill, and you have to be very willing to do that. And then you got to be much better about talking about it. That is, you need to get loud about what you're doing, as long as you're not compromising yourself, because you not only have to assure your community that you're doing something, but talking about it loudly helps motivate other people to look out for everyone else. It motivates other people to get the job done. So we're talking about getting the word out, and getting the word out in a way that promotes collaboration, just people working with each other, because this is serious common good. It's kind of like World War II, where everyone who could pitched in to help defend the country, no matter what country we were talking about.
I think you point out a very important dimension of this, which is talking about it. Because in case of cybersecurity, a lot of times people, especially people who are not technically knowledgeable, they feel a sense of helplessness when they are confronted with cybercrime. And talking about it is really a way to raise awareness and also educate people on the sort of menu of options that they have in responding to this. But another area where people are also starting to feel quite helpless about is how can they trust the information that they are receiving. There is a lot of misinformation and disinformation that's happening, especially with the advent of these large language models, which can just generate an insane amount of content in a blink of an eye. So how can we develop information ecosystems that people can rely on, that people can trust? And I think this is also connected to news and journalism, where you need to identify the correct sources for information as well.
That's a really difficult, painful, and unsolved problem in general. The deal is that there are a lot of people in the world, a small, tiny percentage of the population, but there are too many people who basically make their living by lying to other people. And the people who are good at that are typically much better than the people who want to tell the truth. I mean, I'm biased in this regards. Also in Sunday school, I learned about the ninth commandment, which says, thou shalt not bear false witness, usually translated as thou shalt not lie, but I like the original better. And no one quite knows how to figure this out because it's just too profitable to engage in shittification practices. The one great hope for our species, I feel, is Wikipedia. Wikipedia, in terms of getting things right, isn't perfect, but it's closer than anything else that the species has developed. It's still evolving. It's still getting better. I appreciate when people find problems with it because you find a problem and then the editing community starts figuring out how to deal with it, even if it's a really tough problem, and there are really tough problems. But I think Wikipedia has solved the problem worldwide of somehow getting people of goodwill to work with each other successfully. That's a problem when it comes to bad actors, because bad actors don't want something like that to exist.
It's great to hear you say that because I feel like, throughout my lifetime, there has been this evolution where teachers used to say, don't use Wikipedia, where now it's come to this place where people see it as this reliable source because of, as I agree with you, people of goodwill coming together. How do you see, from your time in Craigslist, people of goodwill coming together on the platform?
On Craigslist, I do see people pitching in and helping each other out at times. Also, I see people using the free section, and people find that they can just give away stuff. There's always someone who wants to use it. And frankly, sometimes reusing an item is better ecologically than new stuff. That's a tough balance because sometimes people's jobs are about building a new stuff, but Craigslist is really good for all that. That's been a known thing for, maybe 20 years or so. I do recall an article about that in People magazine where I'm depicted in that issue. It's the most beautiful people issue, and so I like to tell people that I was in the most beautiful people issue, but that may be a stretch.
I think quite deservedly you were in that issue. We've discussed about Craigslist and a lot of your work thereafter. When you look back at it and reflect it, how do you measure the impact that you've had or measure the effectiveness of certain interventions that you've made and if they are delivering as you would have liked them to deliver?
I don't know how to measure impact. No one may be able to measure it in general. I can see, just judging by website statistics and mentions in social media and so on, that somehow we've helped out, probably tens of millions of people, maybe more, just making inferences from what I can see. But that's kind of guesswork. But I do just get feedback kind of all the time. And I have a feeling that'll have to be good enough for me. It is satisfying because Craigslist has helped tens of millions of people or more just get through the day, because sometimes you just need some help getting through the day. I do contrast that with Wikipedia, which is more about the history of our species, and Wikipedia is something for the ages. I do have started giving Craigslist some credit for showing people that the internet is reasonably useful and reasonably easy to use, and that accelerated, I think, the growth of a lot of people onto the internet. That ain't bad either.
When you talk about these, let's call them success measures, it seems that many of them are values driven, where many people would look at a bottom line. You seem to look around you at the people that you surround yourself with. And I'm curious, what values to you are non-negotiable?
I guess when it comes to the company, not that I have a part in it anymore, but it's, are you doing it to make a reasonable living and to help each other be good to each other? Maybe it's all that simple. A lot of it, too, is about people treating each other like they want to be treated. That callback to the golden rule is a really, really big deal for me. and kind of everything proceeds from that.
What advice would you have for young people or young innovators who are trying to come up with new technological solutions in the kind of products that they're building or services that they're providing to people based on some of these values that you've spoken about? What advice would you give them?
You have to listen to your user community on an ongoing, relentless basis and do what makes sense to your community with a little more added on in terms of your own originality or genuine innovation. You have to, I feel, commit to good customer service and never stop that. And now I'm talking my personal values. You have to commit to avoiding enshittification, whatever that might mean specifically for whatever you're doing. If you're taking investment, you have to work with them about what levels of enshittification they might require and what you're willing to compromise with. And that's a difficult, painful lesson. 30 years ago when I started Craigslist, it was much easier because, again, it was just a hobby for me for the first several years. And I was making a good living doing software contracting, so I didn't have to think about taking investor money because it wasn't there until maybe sometime late 98 and 99. That's when I decided I didn't need the billions that VCs and bankers wanted to throw at me. I was doing well enough.
When you talk about enshittification, by the way, love that term, we'll be adopting it. What do you think is the most dangerous genre of it?
The worst I've seen is when news has been enshittified. That is, sometimes coverage is inaccurate or misleading, sometimes intentionally. That's why I work really hard on finding trustworthy news sources. And my favorite in this regards is Wikipedia. And that's why I've actually committed to doing what I can to helping Wikipedia be healthy and thrive for the human species forever.
I also wanted to zoom out for a second and talk about trust on the internet in general, how you have seen it evolve from early times like the 90s to the present day. And what kind of challenges do you think were not there back in the 90s but are quickly emerging to be real threats to ensuring trust on the internet?
Trust, we're all dependent on it because we rely on other people to get through the day and beyond. And the internet, as it was originally created through sometime in the late 90s, it was a relatively safe space. People might troll each other. There would be flame wars, but the internet was mostly about people of goodwill. Sometime in there, arguably late 90s, early 2000s, people with bad intentions realized that you could approach people with the scams that had worked out in real life, and that's what started the long-term damaging of the trust relationships on the net. People with bad intentions could do what they had always done, because what happens on the street happens on the internet. What's much worse is that also applies to, badly intentioned countries. Countries who have, bad ideas about what they wanted to do to other countries could start attacking informationally. They could start undermining democracies in other countries. And basically was something happening in real life, in the news and elsewhere, which is translated to the net in ways which are probably more damaging than straightforward crime could ever accomplish.
Keeping on the theme of trust, we know that safety by design is an entire principle. It's an entire study. People make careers out of safety by design. What does trust by design mean to you?
All I know is what I practice every day, which has to do with listening to people and doing makes sense. That's harder than it sounds because there are people who might have really good intentions in the beginning of an idea, but no more than the beginning of idea. There will also be people with bad intentions who will try to, as someone said, they'll try to flood the zone with shit, bringing up stuff which doesn't mean anything, or is otherwise confusing. And in a way, that's like a distributed denial of service attack, because if they can't distract you from what you should be doing, that's not a bad strategy or means for attack, whether it's systems or military or just an individual's psychology.
Almost stepping into the philosophical domain, this idea of common good or internet as a common good, I think was something that people subscribed to in the 90s because of the environment that you mentioned. Do you think that it is still realizable in this day?
Well, common good, everyone looking out for each other, we know can work because Wikipedia has somehow figured out how to do that. Imperfect, but basically working. And whatever that secret is, whatever that, I guess, kind of magic is, we have to find ways of expanding it. And a lot of it has to do with trusting people, but verifying and giving people the tools to make a system kind of self-healing with human help. Now, generative AI may help out with that, but I'm not really knowledgeable a bit about that. I chat with some Wikipedia folks about what do we got to do to make that a real thing, but we've barely begun to talk.
I really like that the term common good has now come up 3 or 4 times, because I would love to talk to you about Common Good Cyber, a coalition that you've recently become involved with. Could you share more about what that means and what Common Good Cyber is?
I have a fairly narrow perspective on it because it all started with me gently nudging some people into this direction. Remember, I'm not good at top-down leadership or communication. What I'm good at is building networks and then nudging people relentlessly. So what Common Good Cyber is about, from my point of view, is people of goodwill working together for either no profit or little profit to build mechanisms and to work together in a way that benefits everyone. And that's it for me in its simplest terms. It does require cash to do this, and so I've ponied up some myself for this effort explicitly, but it's about relentlessly doing what one can to help everyone out.
Coalition building is a big part of securing the internet, and there are many alliances and coalitions when it comes to cybersecurity across the world. What, according to you, are the challenges that we face in making sure that these coalitions function properly? You have widespread adoption, people buying into them. And apart from the challenge that you mentioned, which is you need money to operate these kind of coalitions, what other challenges are there in making sure that they achieve the potential?
Well, you've just identified the big challenge. To repeat, helping people work with each other is sometimes something that requires relentless nudging, just gentle pushes towards that direction, and then getting people, nudging them to follow through with commitments, getting people to talk about it a lot, because the more you talk about it, the more real something becomes, not only in public perception, but in your own perception. And then if people are going to be doing things for the common good, not for profit, well, you got to help them get funded. I mean, I can do a lot of funding myself, but I don't have billions to give away. But there are people with billions to give away, and I need to acquire some skills helping professional fundraisers do the actual fundraising. Like, that's the opposite of my skill set. So I do work with people to help them do fundraising, but I maybe arguably just don't know what I'm doing, but I'm willing to be thrown out there and help.
You've done a lot of great work, and as you have said, you will relentlessly nudge in the right direction, or what you see as the right direction. What do you say to the young folks out there now who are deeply invested in this work and would say, Craig, I'm tired. I'm relentlessly nudging and I'm tired. What now?
Well, I don't know, because I'm not a top-down leader. I can only lead by example. That is, just do it and keep on doing it. I've just entered my mid-70s, and I'm trying to do everything I can. I am kind of tired. Last night, veterans event went later than I thought. but I will just keep plugging away because I don't know any better. I plan on doing this, but only as long as I live. After that, it's over, unless we can successfully create Craig GPT.
When you go online now and you want to have some fun, kick back and relax, where do you go?
Normally, I don't do fun, but lately I've been just frankly skimming through YouTube and finding things that unexpectedly are interesting. I just learned a lot about Jakarta, kind of by accident, by virtue of watching a video. I'm finding out a lot about how medieval warriors actually fought, and it's very messy. So I do some of that. I just can't get myself into a TikTok or Reels or anything like that because I am an old guy.
Indeed, YouTube is probably one of the best inventions that the internet has given us. Craig, I want to genuinely thank you for taking out the time today and talking to us, but also for the incredible work that you have been doing and talking about the young people who might be tired. I think they can look at you working tirelessly into your 70s and get inspired to continue chipping away at the challenges that we're facing today in the internet space.
Yep. Well, I tell people a nerd's got to do what a nerd's got to do.
Period. Absolutely. And I echo, thank you for joining us on Internet Changemakers. And thank you so much for your broader work. I think a lot of this work can sometimes be silent and can sometimes take a long time to come to fruition, but it takes relentlessness. It takes values to be able to get this hard work done. And in a time when many people use a bottom line or some kind of external measure, I find it incredible that you are so values-based and that you lead with both your heart and your head.
I appreciate it.
That's it for this episode of Internet Changemakers. If you enjoyed it, subscribe and share. The internet is for everyone, and we all play a role in keeping it safe and open. Want to learn more? Visit internetsociety.org/learning for free self-paced courses on privacy, internet governance, and more. Support our mission to build a stronger, more inclusive internet, and consider donating via the link in the show notes. To connect with our global alumni network, visit our website and follow us online. Until next time, stay curious and help shape the internet's future.